This is Radar, finally ready to table out, coming at you with another edition of Movie Review Observations number 218. So, this week, Jewish holiday, all this other stuff, got to only get to 5 movies. Also, don't have many left. First movie I watched was called The Inventor, where Stephen Fry was voicing Leonardo da Vinci. Daisy Ridley was one of the main actresses, and this is like, I don't even know if it was like claymation or was a CGI, like AI trying to do claymation, because then there was regular stuff on there. Regular, animation, and also Matthew Berry was in this movie. From What We Do in the Shadows, just to name some other people in the movie. This is all about Leonardo da Vinci being this great inventor, creator, whatever, and he's tired of what's going on where he's in Italy, so he takes an opportunity to go to France and then deal with all the stuff with the king and his mother and the sister in France, and it's all about his life and all of his desires to understand the world, understand humans, understand the universe, and his whole quest for it. His whole entire life flashed before his eyes. And I thought, you know what? For a 90-something minute kids cartoon about Leonardo da Vinci, it wasn't bad. It wasn't amazing. There was a lot of confusing things happening, and it wasn't anything to do with like science. It was just very confusing a little bit parts of the movie. But overall, a watchable movie. And then I watched a movie, A Lot of Nothing, where the cover says, Hurt People, a film by Mo McRae. Hang on to the edge of your seat for a wickedly entertaining ride. It's probably one of the most boring things ever, so it's mislabeled in that sort of situation. So I'll say this, Cleopatra Coleman, who I know from Last Man on Earth, I don't know if it was a wig or hair, but they had a really, really, really short haircut with curls, and it looked really weird. And she's successful in whatever she does, and her husband, who's also black, is successful in being a lawyer. And obviously, she's a good job pretending to be American because we know she's like Australian. And I'm a fan of Mo McRae as an actor. I don't know if I'm necessarily a fan of him directing, writing, and producing all at once. He wasn't even in the film. But maybe you should stick to either just acting or just directing or just writing, because the script was terrible and very boring. Most of the movie was just like the couple in their house being upset about a white cop shooting a black kid. And then finding out it's their neighbor and think about, are they going to go in and bother him? And then they don't. Then they go to work. And then the 2 white guys that harassed them, one of them, I've seen him in and Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist as her brother, and as the dude who abused women in the show A Million Little Things. So, of course, he's playing they made it purposely that the white guys say the most racial, cringeworthy things possible just to make a point. And that then they decide, you know what, I'm going to go bother him, even though there was no reason to bother the cop, who's their neighbor. And then the husband gets involved, and then he's trying to de-escalate it, and she pulls a gun out, and they kidnap him. And makes him come in the house to have a talk. And he's still there in the house. And then the guy forgets that his brother and his fiancée are coming over, and she's pregnant. And they have to cook them dinner. And it turns into, well, they find out that this guy is still here, and they got to figure out what to do with him. And I'm just going to say, spoiler alert, it's not Cleopatra going crazy with the gun, shooting him, because obviously there were some shots of gunfire at him biting a little bit of someone's ear off, fighting the 2 black guys in the movie. He ends up being shot in the end. Whatever. It's really freaking stupid and a waste of time. And the guy's future sister-in-law goes into labor at around the exact same time, so it's very coincidental. And then you find out, oh, he didn't shoot a black kid, he shot a white kid. And maybe you should have said that in the beginning, but why does it matter? Mind your own business. If your neighbor's a cop and he's under investigation for killing someone that he shouldn't have been, mind your own business. That should be the lesson of this movie, not about bringing racial injustice into the world and white cops shooting black kids, because this movie wasn't about that. This was just a very bad movie. So yeah, I'm happy that Justin Hartley of Smallville, This Is Us, and now Tracker, 3 successful shows, that he's in a movie. And Cleopatra Coleman, who I know from television as well, as I mentioned earlier, are in a movie. But this movie was just terrible, and it's a good thing that it was barely an hour and 40 minutes. Then I watched the movie Silent Night, and I think Joel Kinnaman, he's a good actor. And they say this is from like John Wick and the whole thing of him getting revenge. Basically, on Christmas, his son gets shots from 2 gangs fighting each other. So his whole mission is, I'm going to research all the gangs, take them down from within, cause cause a gang war between the 2 of them, and take down the bad guy, and do the work of the cops and detectives that they didn't do. But you also have to add the fact that he was shot in the throat, either trying to take down these people in the beginning or at the start, and that he can't talk and he's mute, and his wife leaves him, and he's on his mission and he doesn't talk throughout the movie, so there's not a lot of talking. And then Scott Meducci, which is, I think, is Kid Cudi, is a detective. And he's barely in the movie, and he barely does anything until he shows up in the end and gets shot. And I'm like, there was no purpose. It was very wasteful. So it was an interesting idea for barely an hour and 40-minute movie with credits for Joel Kinnaman to get revenge, like Taken or John Wick, over someone being shot or killed or taken. And, you know, practicing his knife skills, his shooting skills, his hand-to-hand combat, doing all the research and taking all these people down. It's cool and interesting. It just wasn't very well put together. But it's still watchable revenge action film. Then I watched Dead Man's Hand, where it says, play your card and you might just survive. So Stephen Dorff is playing a corrupt guy who kills the mayor and the sheriff, and he's running the town. And I think Cole Hassler is the deputy. I mean, it's like the marshal who comes to, like, take him in, but he won't take him in yet. And Jack Kilmer maybe is the young boy. Maybe, I don't know. Point is, yeah, no, Cole Hausler is the marshal. So the point of the movie is the young buck and his wife and some random woman and her kids are on a stagecoach going to wherever, and some bad guys try to rob it, and they defend themselves and shoot them, and instead of just leaving them for dead, he takes the bodies into town. The problem is he takes his body into a town where the guy in charge of that town now is the guy's brother, and he's out for revenge, and he's like a crooked guy, and he's controlling all the things in town. And, you know, instead of fairly going on, they like try to like get him to be hung or take his wife who's pregnant and all this other stuff. And it turns out, like, he played a card game. He wins a card game, but then he starts shooting like he's, like, the greatest shooter of all time, and it causes a scene. And then he almost dies, and the guy goes, well, you know what? In order for you to never shoot me again, I'm going to cut off your finger. Because he didn't kill Native Americans, they came and helped him, and then the Native Americans were killed by Stephen Dorff's gang, so they were like, we're motivated to come and help you. And they try to save his wife, but of course they're like, oh, she's been raped, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. And it's real, and then she dies anyway because she got shot up a bunch of times, killing the unborn kid also. And I'm like, she's like, you got into all this messes up before, and it seemed like it was a pattern, and maybe they were making a trilogy of this movie, but it just ends well. His wife is dead, and what's he going to do? Move on. Like, he survives miraculously somehow, even without two fingers, and his wife dies, and that's just how the movie ends. So it's like, okay. You know, Stephen Dorff is very well known of being in movies where he's playing cops, where he's playing cowboys. He's doing very similar type of roles, so I wasn't surprised to see him. It was barely 90 minutes. The last movie I watched was Godzilla and King Kong, The New Empire. So instead of them facing each other off, and they did a good job. They did a few King Kong movies, introduced you the humans in the movie. They did Godzilla movies, and they introduced the humans in that one. And I will tell you, the special effects of this movie, the science fiction, the action, the fighting scenes between the creatures of all different kinds, good, bad, all the dinosaurs and all the creatures in New Earth were pretty cool. And the idea is that Godzilla's there to protect us, which is what he always has done. But then King Kong wants to connect with monkeys and other apes, and there's a threat that's bigger than the both of them, and they have to team up together. And I'm like, that's a good plot. First they try to kill each other, and then they're separated. But then it's like, well, they got to go save the day. And I thought that was pretty cool. They got to save the day. The whole kid thing is annoying, where it's like Millie Bobby Brown. I forgot it was either King Kong or Godzilla was very important in the movie, but they take Brian Tyree Henry of Atlanta, and he's been in this movie, and I'm like, that's cool, because, again, no one would have thought when you're watching Atlanta years ago when the guy from Community, who also is a rapper, Donald Glover, was like, I'm going to make a TV show, and it's going to be a dramedy, and Zazie and Lakeisha Stanfield from Rousey's Name, Beats, and are going to become actors in these big-time movies, in Marvel, DC, superheroes, whatever, and it turns out to be, he makes a little comic relief. I also don't understand the whole, let's make the women have buzz cuts and then the guys have long hair. I obviously have long hair, but I just don't understand it for movie-wise. And Dan Stevens, he was great in Legion. I would say he was okay in Beauty and the Beast, but a lot of times he's playing Americans. In fact, they got to play a British person, and he's this cool, like, animal expert. That was pretty cool. So the humans in the movie weren't bad. Obviously, her adopting that kid is obviously because if you saw the other movies, everyone died, and she felt responsible. And if she has connection to the creatures and under Earth, that's fine. It makes sense. There is no love story. There is no romance. There's not wasting time. I felt like this movie was an hour and 46 minutes with about 8 minutes of credit. So it wasn't like there was a lot of wasted drama, a lot of wasted talking. It was literally a lot of Godzilla doing stuff, a lot of King Kong doing stuff, a lot of them doing stuff. So it seemed pretty well timed out and put together of a movie. I don't know if they're going to make any more King Kong or Godzilla movies, but I like this. I thought it was probably one of the best movies I watched in weeks because, again, if you watch any of these videos, I watch a lot of terrible movies that either should never been made or they were just horribly made. And, you know, if it's only an hour 46 minutes because there's like 8 minutes of credit, it's not even that long of a movie. And the soundtrack was great. They played Twilight Zone from Golden Earring. I don't want to spoil it, but it's cool. I Was Made for Loving You by Kiss. Badfingers Day After Day, and Turn Me Loose by Loverboy. Those are 4 examples of pretty good songs to play in a movie, especially Twilight Zone going into another universe. I thought that was pretty darn cool. So overall this week, I didn't say the movies were terrible. Again, Dead Man's Hand is not the most well-written Western, but it's okay. And Silent Night's not the best revenge action movie, but they're both watchable. A Lot of Nothing should just never have been made. The Adventure was a good enough kids movie to watch, but obviously Godzilla and King Kong, The New Empire, based on the time length, the non-wasted scenes, all the science fiction, all the creatures and everything happening, and the humans being good, and the people being the humans in the movie were good actors. And it's probably the best thing I've watched in a while, and they call it the Monsterverse. Like, that's the best thing I've watched this week. Thanks for listening to another edition of Movie Reservation number 218. For Other Entertainment Blog, I'm Radar. See you guys next time.